In recent years, I didn't just become frustrated with weight loss. I was exhausted, not by the food necessarily or the scale, but by the effort itself. I was tired of waking up feeling like my body was a high maintenance project, like a toddler I had to manage because, I already had two of those. Or it was like a mistake I had to constantly correct. What finally broke me wasn't another failed plan. It was realizing that I couldn't live in that level of tension for one more day. The math just didn't add up to a life that I wanted. I thought, this can't be how it's supposed to work. So I'm thinking to myself, it's incredibly efficient at keeping us alive, way beyond our skill level. It's just innate. I asked this question, kind of felt a little bit dangerous, wait a minute. What if my body knows what it's doing with my weight too? What if it already knows what to do? What if the constant managing I'm trying to do isn't like discipline saving me, right? But it's actually the very thing getting in the way. And that question itself opened the best can of worms. You're listening to the Set Point Science podcast, the science behind how our bodies and brain regulate our weight for good. I'm your host, Sherry Alberts, and today we're talking about something that can feel radical at first, but deeply relieving once it lands. I call it passive weight loss. What actually happens when you stop telling your body what to do. We've been raised on a very specific story about weight loss. The idea that weight loss is an active verb, something you decide, you plan, and you control. When it's not working, our culture tells us to double down on effort, treating discipline as that primary currency needed to create change. But here's the big realization. Your body isn't this machine that's just waiting for instructions. It's already a sophisticated regulation system responding to the conditions that it's in. I've said it before and I'll say it again. We treat that regulation like a high stakes project. Our body doesn't experience that as leadership though. It experiences pressure. I noticed almost accidentally that the only times my weight shifted stably were the times I wasn't trying so hard. These were times of certainty where decisions felt easy and the stars felt like they were aligned. Weight loss happened during periods where my system felt calmer and less handled by my brain. My appetite softened and the frantic urgency around food, it just kind of faded away. It confused me at first though, because in this grind hustle culture that we have, we're taught that if something feels easy, we're doing something wrong. We assume that change must be dramatic and quick in order to be real. But I've learned that boring is actually what regulation itself feels like. It's not a thrill ride. It's just steady and neutral. Once I saw that, weight loss stopped looking like this big, huge fortress I needed to conquer. Not something that my ego could look back on and be like, yeah, I'm super good. I'm super awesome. I did that. No, it became something that my body just kind of offered back. Like when you're getting your change in the grocery store line, you give some money, they give you some money back and you move on. But this only began to happen when I started to let go of the steering wheel. To really understand why passive weight loss isn't just a nice idea, but a biological reality, we have to look at what happens inside our body the moment we drop the effort. Because I want to be clear, passive weight loss isn't passive in the sense that nothing's happening. No, far from that. It's passive in the sense that we stop micromanaging, which is what finally allows our body to just resume its built-in job of regulation. See, our body isn't a calculator. It doesn't just count the calories we eat, subtract the calories we moved, and then spit out some number. Though all the normal diet programs are going to tell you that's exactly what happens. Clearly, it's a much more advanced neuroendocrine regulation system. Brain, hormones. It's a fancy way of saying that your brain, your hormones, your organs, they're all in a 24/7 group chat. They're constantly negotiating how much energy to burn, how much to store, and how on alert we need to be. And here's the key organizing principle underneath all of this. The state of our nervous system controls the state of every other system in our body. When the nervous system is calm and regulated, everything downstream works differently than when it's under pressure. A huge part of this negotiation happens through the HPA axis, which we've talked about many times before, that hypothalamic pituitary adrenal axis. This is the system that gauges the demand, how much demand our body is under. And here's the part that most of us miss. Our HPA axis can't tell the difference between a physical threat and mental supervision. Constant monitoring, that feels like demand. Bargaining with your hunger, holding off on eating, stuff like that, that's demand. Staying ahead of your cravings or judging the scale, having a terrible day because the scale set a number. To our nervous system, that's all perceived demand. When the HPA axis senses that kind of ongoing pressure, it drips out cortisol, like we've talked about. Not necessarily in this panic kind of way. It's not that sort of fight or flight, immediate action kind of a thing, but in this low grade chronic hum. And cortisol's job is very simple. It doesn't care about your goal weight. It only cares about your survival. Cortisol says, we're under pressure. We might need extra energy later. So the body does the only intelligent thing that it can do, which is it becomes conservative. It locks the doors a little bit. It reduces the metabolic flexibility, makes our appetite louder, and it holds on to fat like it's a raft. It's not a malfunction, it's protection. And over time, especially as women in our 40s, 50s, 60s, we have dieted so much and created so much of this back and forth and on and off kind of stuff that now the body has learned, ooh, this is the normal state we're in. We are in this, we need to be careful state. So it flows naturally that the decades of vigilance that we've used have created this cycle, and it's created this holding on. Okay, but here's where it gets so fascinating. The part that almost blew my mind when I first realized it. Maintaining a higher body weight is actually metabolically expensive. What do I mean by that? It takes a lot of extra energy to continue to carry that extra tissue, that extra fat along with us all the time, right? Imagine going up the stairs. If we lost 50 pounds, it'd be so much easier than if we were going up the stairs with that 50 pounds. It's harder on your cardiovascular system. It raises that baseline inflammation in your body. Your body actually wants to be at a more efficient, lower weight. It doesn't want to carry that extra workload forever. But here's what's crazy. It will choose that metabolically expensive outcome of higher weight every single time if it believes resources are uncertain. So this is why when demand finally drops, when you stop that mental supervision, you feed yourself when your body needs it, and the system starts to feel steady, your body gets the message, we're okay. We don't need to hold this buffer anymore. This internal trust, it's not just a mindset, it's also a physiological state. When your body feels trusted, it doesn't need to defend itself. This is why passive weight loss often feels so boring. It's not force, it's not urgency. It just feels like less interest in food because your appetite isn't a moral signal. It's a neuroendocrine signal. When the brain senses safety, the signal naturally softens. And this is why it can actually be dangerous to listen to the messages that we hear in society about our metabolism is broken, our brain is broken, our body is broken, like everything's all messed up. No, it's not. It just needs repatterning. And remember, your brain alone uses about 20% of your energy, and it's only 2% of your body weight. So thinking, planning, and staying vigilant are metabolically expensive. So when we stop telling our body what to do, we're not giving up. We are removing the unnecessary demand that was keeping our set point higher. You're sort of getting out of the way so the system can finally say, we're safe now, let's let go. If you're listening to this, and something in your body just relaxed a little bit, that matters. Because what we're talking about here is not willpower or strategy. It's just what happens when the demand on your nervous system finally eases. And for a lot of people, this is the first time that weight loss has been explained in a way that doesn't make us feel like we're failing or there's something wrong with us. So if you're finding yourself thinking, okay, this makes sense, but I don't know how to stop supervising, you're not alone in that. This is exactly the work we're going to be doing inside of Set Point Restore. Not forcing change, not pushing the body to behave differently, not following a strict meal plan. We're going to be learning how to lower the demand that our system has been carrying so regulation can return on its own. The membership isn't open yet, but will be opening very soon. So if you want more information, you'd like to be on the wait list, you can go to setpointscience.com/restore. Okay, let's keep going. So what does this look like on a random Tuesday? It's not dramatic. It lacks that familiar energy of like, ooh, new strict plan, new diet. When you do this right, it actually feels unremarkable, maybe even kind of boring. Passive weight loss isn't a new strategy or something to put effort into. It's just the opposite, actually. It's simply the removal of interference. So it's noticing hunger without bargaining. You stop asking yourself these intricate questions like, did I earn this snack? Can I afford it? How long can I white knuckle it? It's just this quiet recognition of, am I hungry? Yeah, my body needs fuel. Let's eat. End of thought. Then you eat and you move on. Simple. When a craving hits, we don't spiral into stories about willpower or worth or this is never going to work or whatever. We just pause and we get curious. Am I underfueled today? Maybe my underfueling is what's causing me to be so cravey right now. So we treat it as a data point, not a character flaw or an issue. Then there's the scale. We don't see a change maybe when we get on the scale, and we then don't launch into like emergency fix-it mode. We don't start tightening screws and promising to get serious tomorrow and feeling really bad about ourselves for the rest of the day. We just move on and we let it be. In fact, over time, the scale becomes very unimportant compared to becoming more in tune with our body. Because over time, we realize that daily fluctuations aren't super helpful data points. What's helpful is seeing that larger picture. That's the shift. We resign as the manager of our body. And what changes first? It isn't our waistline, but it's that internal monologue. The urgency melts. Eating stops feeling like this high stakes performance review where we're constantly failing. We start to feel more calm. We start to trust our body more. We start to feel like this might actually happen. When our body realizes it isn't being supervised for mistakes, it stops staying braced. It doesn't release weight because of some metabolic trick you heard about in a YouTube ad or something, right? Your body releases because it finally actually feels safe enough to stop defending itself against you. Appetite becomes clearer rather than louder. Food feels ordinary, not a reward or a moral failure. Just lunch. This steadiness creates the room for change, not because you pushed and you finally did it and you're super strong and disciplined, but because you just stopped fighting. That's the reality of this work. It's not vigilance. It's just a body safe enough to do what it was already designed to do. If you've spent years in this cycle, I want to give you a framework that I hope makes you realize you're not crazy. You're actually quite brilliant at adapting. There's a very specific psychological mechanism I want to talk about here. It's something called control as emotional regulation. So for most of us, especially those of us who've carried a lot of responsibility or navigated high pressure environments, which is like all of us, we learned a very early lesson. Predictability equals safety. We learned that if we stay on top of things, if we can monitor the variables and manage the outcomes, then we can keep our world steady. So naturally, our mind started doing this too. We're treating our bodies as just another variable to be managed. We convinced ourselves that supervising every bite, negotiating with every hunger signal, staying hyper vigilant about the scale was just being responsible. We labeled that as discipline. But here's the paradox. To our mind, that supervision feels like being good, but to our body feels like a threat. Supervision creates that constant low-grade internal pressure. As we've talked about before, pressure tells the nervous system to brace. It tells the body we're still in survival mode. And I want you to hear this clearly. This is not a discipline issue. You're not just like undisciplined, emotionally weak, as others might have you think. The way your body operates right now is actually brilliant. It's a learned safety strategy, and it's working just how it's supposed to. At some point in your life, staying on high alert probably worked incredibly well for you. It might have even been necessary. The goal here isn't to fix you or to rip that strategy away from you, because trying to force yourself to stop controlling just creates more control. Instead, we're simply inviting that pattern to finally soften away. We're showing our mind that our environment has changed, that our body doesn't actually need a manager anymore. It needs a partner. So let's get to the heart of the reframe. When I use the term passive weight loss, I know it can sound like a little bit suspicious. We've been conditioned to think that if it's passive, it means nothing's happening or we're being lazy or reckless. But here's the actual truth. Passive weight loss isn't passive because the body is doing nothing. It's passive because you are no longer micromanaging the whole process. Think of it this way. Your body releases weight when it feels resourced, not when it feels watched. When you watch your body, monitoring it for mistakes, correcting its hunger, all that kind of stuff, like trying to eat celery instead of crackers, that body and mind, they stay in that state of defense. But when your body feels resourced, and what do I mean when I say resourced? When it feels that fuel, rest, good sleep, all that stuff is predictable, like it knows we're not in danger here. We're going to get what we need. We're going to get sleep. We're going to get rest. We're going to get emotional calm. We're going to get food and meals and what we need to survive. The body can finally shift its energy towards creating regulation. Regulation. What do I mean by that? Meaning working on new important things, like shifting things to the point where we can finally start to regulate back down to a lower weight, changing the leptin and ghrelin signaling, processing old, now unnecessary fat stores, repairing stuff, etc. Keep in mind, the goal here isn't to stop caring or something. It's not about checking out or giving up on our health. It's actually a deeper form of care. It's the shift from telling your body what to do to letting your body respond. This is where true metabolic flexibility returns, and it doesn't happen through more effort. It happens through our state. When you change your internal state from one of demand to one of safety, neutral, calm, no matter what's going on in your life, you aren't just making a mindset shift. You're changing your internal biological environment. You're sending a signal to your cells that says, hey, the marathon is over. We don't need to hold on to this buffer anymore. That is the boring magic of regulation. It's the moment you realize that your body isn't a problem to be solved, but a system that's been waiting for you to stop fighting it so it can finally do its job. Okay, to bring this home, I have a simple, low-stakes experiment for you this week. Don't change your diet or track a single thing. Your only job this week is to notice the manager. Watch for those split-second urges where we want to step in and fix our body. It sounds like a voice telling you to wait an hour to eat because you're busy and, hey, you might save calories that way, or drink some water to kill the hunger that you have for 15 minutes, or choose a safe food over what you actually want. So that's how the manager shows itself. And then in response, it would look like actually eating when your body says it's hungry, not pushing it off. Actually considering that maybe cravings are useful information, telling you need a little bit more fuel, not pushing off hunger until we're ravenous. So crucially, don't try to stop the actual urges that you get to try to manage the body. Just notice those. See that happening. If you try to force yourself to stop managing, you're just micromanaging your management. So instead, just simply witness it. Say, oh, there's the manager trying to keep me safe, trying to fix some things, trying to get me not to eat, whatever. I'm actually going to listen to what the underlying message is, which is maybe I'm tired and I need rest. I need better sleep. Maybe I'm hungry and I need some food, stuff like that. Remember this. Awareness without correction is regulating. You don't have to stop being the manager altogether. I just want you to be aware. That is to say, awareness of that manager without telling yourself, don't manage, is what's going to bring calm. And over time, being more aware of the pattern that you have to be the manager, it helps you actually soften the management automatically. So we're not trying to change that. By observing the loop without jumping in to fix it, the pressure leaks out of that system. The braced state softens on its own. Look for that neutral, boring feeling like, oh, my tummy said I was hungry, so I ate. It's not interesting. It's in that quiet space that our body finally has the resources it needs to shift. Passive weight loss isn't asking you for blind faith. It's simply inviting you to listen with a different set of ears. When your body finally feels heard instead of handled, the internal fight starts to dissolve, actually. If you're finding that you're ready to actually practice this shift, to move from being your body's manager to being its partner, I'd love to have you join us inside Setpoint Restore. It's our community and our practice ground where we focus on lowering that chronic demand that our system is carrying so our biology can finally resume regulation. You can find all the details at setpointscience.com/restore. Next time, we're diving into a big one, why consistency doesn't mean perfection, and why finding our rhythm matters so much more than following the rules. Thanks for joining me for Setpoint Science. And until next time, see if you can step out of the manager's office for just a few minutes today and just watch what your body does with the quiet.